So I'm like Daugherty, not of the world of technology and not of the world of law, but I've been sort of parachuted in, in deference of what I really wanted to do. So here I am 13 years later. How many people have heard anything about LabMD versus the FTC? So most of, okay. So what I'm going to do, ultimately my core is I'm a sales guy, a consultative sales guy. So we always are taught it takes 7 times to get an impression or even notice. And so I'm going to tear you through really quickly what I call the tunnel of fire, what happened, and then the rear view mirror, because I will just say in the beginning, what we thought happened all those years is what was not really going on. And so this is, and why anyone should care, and it's something that's changed, is sort of my experience with audiences and public perception of anything that goes out of Washington, is that I'm not the victim. The victim is the patients of my company and everyone that's related to any of those patients that were getting diagnosed for cancer. And what we don't understand as Americans is when someone else is a victim, we're also a victim. And we don't make that connection nearly enough. Hence we have an unspeakable amount of corruption in the country, which 10 years ago when I talked about this, people would think I was crazy. So we'll start off with saying this is the FTC versus LabMD, cybercrime and politics getting to the hospital after the funeral. So LabMD, very quickly, I got one other question up front. Let's see, are you leaving?
No.
Okay, so can you say to me at 1/2 Mike, it's 1/2
Yes.
Thank you, because I kind of drum in. So I went to the University of Michigan, got a degree in economics, was raised in Detroit, parents, police officers when they met, one of the first kids in the family to go to college, start working as a device sales rep, work at US Surgical, mentor, make great money, life goes on, split off, open my own medical laboratory, and next thing I know I'm 47 and doing great and pretty well off and no debt, workaholic, diagnosing cancer. That's LabMD. And this is LabMD. And LabMD was a medical laboratory that worked on prostate cancer, and what differentiated us was our technology. And that was because I wasn't a physician, I just had them work for me. So I could look more big picture CEO 7. We were kicking butt. And out of the blue, one day, the phone rings, and it's a guy saying, my name's Robert Balbick, and I've got, I found 9,000 other patients out in cyberspace. So 9,000 patients, and was a big deal in 2008. And where people I knew the word breach was like a breach birth. So you can retrain this stuff. And so I'm just like, okay, how'd you find it? And he wouldn't tell us how he found it. And I refused to pay him his money to help me fix it. And I'll skip over a lot of that because we have to get the big picture. Bottom line is we're being extorted. But the extortionist was saying he was the nice guy, and I called the county police, and no one really believed us. And then they also know, what are we going to do about it? We have no idea. And so, and you're sitting there by yourself, and you experience no one really believes you, and if they do believe you, they don't know what to do, and you're supposed to just move on. It was not a good time. And when I wouldn't hire him, next thing you know, the government's on my back investigating us. The Federal Trade Commission sent a letter in 2010. We're seeing if you violated Section 5 of the FTC Act and your cybersecurity practices are deficient. Now, Obama had just won, and we were terrified of Obamacare, and the whole world was, actually Obama had won before that. But in the middle of that, Obamacare passed, and we were terrified that we're going to have to diversify the whole company because small businesses were going to lose in medicine big time. So you had to diversify them. And so we're having to, like, cake or death. What you going to do? You're going to worry about these guys? And it really set the stage for a future fiasco. And you have all these things that you have to deal with which is the second you're accused of anything, doubt kills you. Especially if you're a big mouth entrepreneur that doesn't play victim well. That has an airplane and has a big house in Buckhead. You're a terrible human for this. So, and the FTC goes out and says, LabMD did not employ basic risk management techniques or safeguards, such as automated intrusion detection systems, file integrity monitoring software, penetration testing. It also failed to monitor traffic coming across its firewalls. When, if you look in the file we submitted, there's not only the firewall data, but the logs. But who in the media or anyone that's out there as a CISO is going to go look at that? Nothing. So I enjoyed the fun time of having, I remember a CISO from USF or someone from Florida just send me a shame message over LinkedIn, giving me helpful advice that they said I did admirable work, but it would be so much more compelling if I would just admit and take responsibility for my wrongs. This is what's going on in people's heads. I appreciated that she actually said it, because I know there were 1,000 other people that just thought, well, this jerk can't admit his problem. And everyone else wants to just avoid the blame game, okay? So this is really about what happened after all that, right? So 2009, 2008, we were hacked, quote unquote. 10 to 13, we had the FTC investigation. 14 and 15, we had administrative trial. Congress got real crazy because I fought back, and holy cow, if you fight back, they're gonna come get you, because you cannot teach other people that fighting back is a successful road. They don't care if you're right or wrong. It's just like, kill the fighting back person. We don't want any people getting any ideas. 16, 17, FTC overturns US Court of Appeals. Okay, they set up the state. Now you gotta remember, this is a really important slide here, because this is gonna be so indicative of how they actually operate. Which is, they put a press release out. Widespread, this is the FTC, widespread data breaches uncovered by FTC probe. FTC warns of improper release of sensitive consumer data on peer-to-peer file sharing networks. I mean, this is laughable in the rearview mirror, but they had 100 companies, and they're investigating all of them, and they send CIDs to everybody. Now remember that, because it's gonna shock you later. I'm so glad I have irrefutable proof now. I'm trying to figure out, well, what is Section 5 of the FTC Act? I mean, I work at Health and Human Services. We just had a perfect inspection. We love them. They're all med techs, they're scientists. They're not just bureaucrats, they're not lawyers. So I had a naively fantastic relationship with our regulators for 20 years. But I find out the FTC Act came from Woodrow Wilson in 1914, so timely for the 21st century. And the act it seems as your practice is unfair where causes are likely to cause substantial injury to consumers, cannot be reasonably avoided by consumers, and is outweighed by countervailing benefits to consumers or competition. So if you're a lawyer and you look at that, you go, well, who decides what? Who decides anything? The FTC, that's who. And if you dare to interfere with that, you're going to be having to invest your time, money, investigation. So the passage of time, their ignorance and corruption will become all the more clear. But when you're in the middle of that, trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? How do I build this system to protect my company with words like this? You can't. But that's because Congress. So this was me back then. I feel like, what the hell's going on? And why am I suddenly so lonely? And then I had to go back, and your lawyers that you're interviewing will say things in Washington like, well, you're toast, and just settle. And I'm like, this isn't happening. And I found out Woodrow Wilson is actually who had the brilliant idea to start our administrative state over 100 years ago, because back then we had the medical and technological revolution, and he didn't want politicians regulating all that. He was a bit of an arrogant racist. And it's ironically, that's the first statue they should be tearing down when they were tearing statues down, but the hell with history. And he the founding fathers created, 3 branches of government, right? The executive, judicial, and then the legislative, which they actually split in 2 because they wanted to, you'll love this, prevent the legislators from over-legislating us. And so that was the whole system of government at that point, but he created this sub-administrative process where these agencies that he started, which seemed innocent for 50 years, had no separation of powers. They had their own judges, their own rules, they made them all. And the way to take their power, I'm XYZ agency, I'm gonna regulate this, who says so? I say so. How do we unsay so that? Well, someone's gonna have to sue me for 10 years. Who's going on to do that? It's gonna take, so basically they get away with murder. And then what happens is you have the fist of power. And then you have bureaucrats with scant experience in the world as they regulate, which was not the intent of Woodrow Wilson, but what academic has ever worked in reality well? Doesn't happen. No. So medicine and technology have a common burden, and that is we're dealing with buffoons with power. Okay? So here's the quick example. This guy wrote this for anyone else about the Federal Trade Commission and how they give themselves power. And it's always better if someone else says this to me. So the Federal Trade Commission promulgates substantive rules of conduct. The Commission then considers whether to authorize investigations into the Commission's, to see whether the Commission's rules have been violated. The investigation is conducted by the Commission, which reports its findings to the Commission. If the Commission thinks that the Commission's findings warrant an enforcement action, the Commission issues a complaint. The Commission's complaint that a Commission rule has been violated is then prosecuted by the Commission and adjudicated by the Commission. This Commission adjudication can either take place before a full Commission or before a semi-autonomous Commission administrative law judge. If the Commission chooses to adjudicate before the administrative law judge rather than the Commission can appeal to the Commission. If the Commission ultimately finds a violation, then and only then the affected private party can appeal to an Article 3 court, but the agency decision, even before the bona fide Article 3 tribunal, possesses a strong presumption of correctness on matters both of fact and law. That means you're screwed settle, Mike. Because, if I spent an hour explaining that to you, you would probably think that I have an attitude. But what we have is all these regulators being nuns with guns. We're here to save the world, we're gonna shoot you, and if you push back, you're dead. And so, settle. And don't fight back, or I'm gonna get pissed. And this is your lawyer's advice, right? Or we're going to save the world by bearing you procedures and data. And Congresses of the last 20 years, 50 years have given us this great option. We can just go right at you to federal court and tear you up to shreds there. But that's for the people that we really know are going to win. But if we really want to, if we're mad at you or want to tear you to shreds or really grind you to the system, we're going to take you to our own court first, where we make our own rules. And the federal rules of civil procedure don't work. We have our own rules, which means we get to drain you dry with financial. You don't participate in federal rules of procedure. Hearsay is allowed. Because they can say any made-up crap they want about you, like what they did and what I read earlier, which turned out to be completely untrue. And the administrative judge is supposed to decide which is crap and which sticks. Attorneys are privileged, so all your investigators are privileged, so we don't get to say anything. There's no discovery, barely little enough to let you know. We gotta keep a bag over your head the whole time, because it's not an Article 3 court, so you're not allowed to know what the other side says when we take. Now, do you think the legal publications that put stories about LabMD and the Wall Street Journal and Forbes, etc., say any of that? No. So I had the fun time of running around saying the very effective line of, "We didn't do that," which everyone immediately believed. So you have reputation assassination, psychological warfare, cooperative press, damage operations, Chevron deference, which is a Supreme Court ruling from 40, 50 years ago that drives everyone crazy now, which said, well, you gotta give huge deference to the government because they're the government. So every judge is always hid behind that. So what this is, in reality, is head on a spike regulation in cybersecurity technology, because Congress will pass nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to just find anybody out in the industry, and we're going to pull them out like a lottery, and they didn't do anything, and we're going to make them sign a consent decree to say what they did wrong. And they're going to sign it just to make us go away. And they'll have a nice day, and we'll just get on with it, and then we'll be able to take this list of what you shouldn't do, and all the big law firms are going to charge you $1,000 an hour, so you know what to take to your board to know not what to do. And I am the head on the spike that wouldn't shut the F up. This pissed them off, because they were destroying a cancer detection center, and nobody wanted to point that out, that we had 700,000 patients that we had diagnosed for cancer. And you know what? There's not a lot of them that are that good. But that, I mean, they were so amused at first that I was pissed off, and then it moved to annoyance. And I learned all the unfortunate experience of people wanting me to shut the F up. I was like amazed. I'm like, well, clearly your mother is now one of our patients. So I go to Congress, and that was another experience. I'll just let this speak for itself. And then the bottom line game is they exhaust you into submission, so you're out of resources before you get to a fair and impartial court, because they get to run that years, right? And so it's nothing but a game of steamroll. And so I start doing more research about this Tyversa character because now I'm going to face some sort of a trial in a kangaroo court. And I find out that Homeland Security had hired Dartmouth with $25 million, who hired Tyversa, the company that called me on the phone, to start doing research for Homeland Security and about all these medical leaks that were all over the world. And so, and Wesley Clark's on their advisory board, as well as our friend Howard Schmidt and all sorts of other well-respected academic people. And you know what that means? That means that no one vets you when you go to Washington because you know so-and-so, so they let the crook in the door. And so this guy, Tyversa, thank goodness for Google or YouTube or whatever, because this guy, we look back at this now, he said on these videos that they do 300 to 1.8 billion searches per day, 4.5 million workstations worldwide, 1.3 million files downloaded, and they put the LabMD file up in front of a House Oversight Committee in 2007. So I'm looking at this, I'm sorry, 2009. I'm looking at this in like 11 in the rearview mirror going, holy gosh, I'm like, famous, didn't even know it. I'm sitting here in oversight committees and my files in Wired magazine, and no one ever called me. And I'm just this big example. And this is what they do. They'll pick a small one, and because it's not the point to really get you. You're just supposed to be an example, so no one knows. And because it's really about shaking you down to shut you up. And Tyversa is supposed to be this white hat, wonderful company. And you are just supposed to sign the consent decree and get along, and here's the game of the FTC. We're going to create common law, because Congress won't make a law on cybersecurity. We're going to create common law through pattern, so judges can go, oh, see the pattern. And we create common law by getting the consent decree, beat up 27 companies, and then we build a precedent, and then we get to avoid courts and juries. And then we mislead and stonewall Congress, because we go in there once a year for 3 minutes going, everything's great. And then we play hero to the press. And the last time I checked the list of valedictorians, most of them did not go to journalism school. Nothing personal. So my own lawyers, sorry, Richard, was really annoyed because I was going, we didn't do anything. And my lawyer who worked at the FTC for 20 years said, you know, if you don't settle, they're going to watch you forever and they can always come back. And so I'm sitting here going, can this get any worse? My own lawyer's billing me to threaten the hell out of me. So we're lambs to slaughter, and it's persecution through process. And this is the reality of the administrative situation, okay? Which means you can't get to an independent agency until you're through what's below the red line. And that takes years and money, so you got that point. So it's a long slog up Justice Mountain. And it's not what we learn on the TV show. Because you are going to be the fly in the ointment, you're ignored by law, government, when I say law, I mean big law, media, and business. Because everyone's afraid of what's going on, and it's really a self-preservation game. But I started to win, and then everyone else started to notice, because my company folded, and then people went, oh wow, if Daugherty loses, we're stuck with an agency that can just run us into the ground no matter who we are. So maybe we better give a damn about ourselves. So, but I digress. So one of the commissioners talked about how the fix was in. Their administrative process gives them huge advantages. In the past 20 years, FTC here ruled in favor. So when the FTC judge rules against the FTC commissioners always overturn. And in the 20 years, 100% of the overturned cases stayed overturned. So what good is having an administrative law judge? So, and then when you get out and go to the appellate court, you're finally out to freedom, they lose half the time. So there's a problem. We start getting to court finally, and the courts said, no one's really litigated your authority in this area to do this, although you apparently have done a lot of it. And that means 37 companies before me had actually just rolled over. And you can hear every corporation in America do this. Oh, it's expensive. Okay, and so basically self-preservation and let the beast get bigger so it screws your neighbor. That's what they're doing. So much for their community service, tag at the bottom of the website. I'm going to skip over some of this, but because it's really about steamrolling and bullying. And I decided that, okay, I'm going to be dead. I'm going to write a book. Because I have enough, I just wanted this documented. And I wrote it like a novel, because if I just get up and yell, scream, and rant, no one wants to realize. You really have to understand writing like a novel brings the reader into their own self-interest, and that's the whole goal. Like, why the hell do I care about this? I'm sorry for you, Mike. Get over it. But this is about, well, yeah, except this is our government, my friend. And this is 700,000 cancer patients. So you get over the fact that you can't figure out why this is important. So I had to learn to write like a novel. So I did. And it was really more, I mean, I gotta tell you, it was incredible. I never really thought it was gonna take off like it did, but it did. So this really annoyed the FTC. We went into our pre-trial first hearing, and I had one lawyer and one paralegal, and they marched in 7 lawyers and 13 paralegals. It was just like lockstep. And then he comes up to my lawyer and he goes, "We're very upset about the book." And my lawyer, I was very proud of my lawyer when he said, "I guess we just saved 20 free copies." And so I was like, right on, way to fight back. Because nothing pisses off a bureaucrat than not being afraid of them. That sends them in the outer zone of crazy. So that followed up by disrespect, which this book is all about, a mirror. This book is nothing more but a mirror, and what these bureaucrats live on, they think that they're working for $200 a year when they can go out into corporate and make $600, so they think they're sacrificing for America, and they're wonderful people, and they all pat each other on the back and how great they are, and some of them are fine, but there's no accountability when most of them aren't. And so I really intentionally went for their self-image, so to speak. So, because I knew justice and fairness was not on their table. So they came at me shock and awe, 40 subpoenas. They're terrifying everyone, doctors, nurses, customers, tech people. I mean, my personal assistant, I really thought they were gonna subpoena my mother because she filed some insurance stuff for me for like 3 months. I thought they were gonna go for mom. And what this does is, this makes everyone go, okay, there's doubt around here. I need a job. Mike's a stubborn SOB, see ya. And that worked really well. So the company closed 6 months after this. And we go to the hearing, and the judge says to the FTC, okay, exactly how is LabMD supposed to know what to do? And I luckily can take this out of the transcript where the guy says, there is nothing out there for a company to look to. Well, I naively and stupidly thought, game, set, match, we're done now. There's no law in writing, and no corporation can know what to do. I guess we're gone. Wrong. Oh, there's no place for you to know what to do, and you're violating the law, and you're still going through this? Yeah. Oh, okay. And so everybody, I mean, I spoke to Marco Rubio about this at the conference about a year later, and he goes, I know, terrifying, isn't it? Anyway, that's pretty much I was all over the hill, and all I'm learning is, oh my God, they all know, and there's nothing they can do about it, nothing they want to do about it. So it's steamroll, 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 steamroll. Now people say out to me, oh, you had a HIPAA violation. So I always go, there was no HIPAA violation, and Health and Human Services wrote themselves there was none. I'll skip over the details. So the company closed, and I had to close. I never lost money ever since the company opened in 1996. Not 1 year until 2013, where we lost almost $1 million. So I had to shut it to stop the bleeding. And so what I say is, villainy wears many masks, none more dangerous than the mask of virtue, and this is the game they play. They're SOBs behind the scene, and I mean horror stories. And if you say the horror story, people think you're a conspiracy theorist or have an axe to grind or upset. So you have to be nice and not be emotional, and then they're not going to think there's a problem. Or if you're not nice and emotional, they're not going to want to hear you. So it was a really tough situation for a long time. It started to change later, but that's once we got court wins, which took years. So I wrote the book came out, and then this is where you start throwing Hail Mary pass, and a whistleblower comes out. Guy calls me in April 14, hi, I'm the guy that stole your file. And my name's Richard Wallace, and I work for Diversa, and I quit yesterday, and I stole everything, and it's worse than you know, and your book's correct. And I got an award from Robert Miller, that's Rick on the right. And I take him to Darrell Ice, and they start investigating, and we have hearings December 14, and it is insane to see it. Every time I thought, okay, I'm testifying for House Oversight. Okay, I can't tell anyone anything's going on this summer because I'm working with House Oversight like crazy. We're gonna win. No. It's like, I'm testifying in front of Congress. C-SPAN won't put it on because Jay Rockefeller scared the crap out of them. No media's there, including conservative media, by the way. Fox News, no. Heritage, no. Cato, no. It's like, no, sorry. It's just theater for the damned. And so we start going through this after, and we start reverse engineering what happened. And I mean, Darrell Issa deserves a humanitarian award because he was well aware of what it was up against, and he went up against it anyway. And we got a lot of information about how they were funneling secrets back and forth, and they did it by creating a false company. The FTC wanted all the data and all the companies from Tyversa that they had found leaking files, because those were bad companies without the proper cybersecurity, which they don't have to tell you what that is. And so Tyversa said, we're not doing that. We don't be known as the boy for the FTC. So they said, well, create a false company. And so they created the Privacy Institute out of Delaware, which had the CEO's uncle as the address. And that's how they'd funnel everything. And it was a steamroll. And in addition, it wasn't just me. It was thousands of companies. And the whistleblower said they told the media and the feds that an Iran IP address downloaded disclosed the prints of the president's helicopter, Marine One. Really, they stole it from a consultant's place. That changed it. Same thing happened with Supreme Court Justice Breyer in the Washington Post. They stole it themselves and changed the metadata, made it up. So now things are getting really uncomfortable for the FTC, and they want me to shut up, and we end up in court again. This is some of the outrageous things that they would come into court and say, and you observe they don't care about judges or courts. They're contemptuous of these people. And so the judge would say, so you have no information to establish how evidence was obtained. Is that your right? Yes, that's correct. So we don't know how they got it. So you don't know where the evidence came from. You don't know how these people got possession of it. You don't know whether they originated from LabMD or some other place, but you are going to use that to show that certain individuals were damaged. Yes, Your Honor. Holy cow. Remember this. Okay, so the judge is right on them, but they don't care. Because they've got government deference. So they're steamrolling us. And we get to go to kangaroo court. And then we end up through kangaroo, and now I'm on trial, every day. And the congressional investigation is going on, so I'm loving this. I don't know why I'm so chirpy when I'm in court, because I'm like, oh, Issa is investigating all you pieces of crap. so the judge goes, and the judge, this is the judge, you get a lot of bad judges. This judge just was awesome. Says, hang on a second, you don't plan to introduce evidence of harm, but your position is that doesn't mean no harm occurred. Is that what you correct? That's correct. Do you plan to introduce evidence of actual penetration? We are not gonna. No. So, you're a rapist, but we don't have a girl. Okay? But we think you might have done it. So, they said the court's order provides that LabMD may not discover the legal standards FTC has used in the past, is currently using to enforce Section 5. So they're pointing out the court says, you violated the law and you can't know what law you violated. And I just say this in quotes out of the transcript because who would believe me if I said that? I would not believe me. But more steamrolling. So Rick comes in, so the FTC rests their case, and then here comes Rick and he pleads the fifth, and blank hits the fan. And everyone is everyone is now like hot potato crazy. I'm gonna skip that whole summer thing because it's just, thank you. So we're doing well actually. And what I'm wondering at this point is now we have all this evidence. We've got transcripts, we've got report, we've got all this stuff, and everyone's gone. I'm at 60 Minutes. I'm in New York 3 times. Not interested. Wanna know why? Because the producer was on the Obama campaign when she started, and she works for Steve Croft, and they do all the FTC stuff. And they're not going to defend little old irrelevant me so that they burn their stories from President Obama. Sorry, have a nice day. Because journalism is a business. So everyone's whistling past the graveyard. But then the Department of Justice gave Rick immunity, which shocked everybody. And I thought, oh, here we go. And the congressional report comes out, which is Tyversa and the FTC had a quid pro quo relationship. You give us companies, we tell you who we're investigating, You approach them and they'll know you have inside information and they'll hire you. MetLife, LifeLock, $1 million. So they went and made a ton of money. That's okay, because it's all about justice. So in closing arguments, in the FTC court said, just so I'm clear, the government's position is a mere breach is all that's required for this Section 5 violation. Your Honor, a breach is not required. That statement is what woke up corporate America. Give a damn about me until that moment. And then everyone's like, oh my God, you mean this isn't just a little entertaining legal show? With some dramatic big mouth entrepreneur? We might get stuck with this bag? That's right. So how many victims have we identified? We have not presented a consumer witness. I love their language, the consumer witness. I mean, they will lie, and they're so unconscionable, they're so sociopathic. Their language is incredible, more steamrolling. And when I was at RSA that year, I get a call. We were at the bar at the W where everyone hangs out. So, and boom, I'm hearing someone said, "Did you see Twitter? The FBI just raided Tyversa." Well, once again, false alarm. I think we're going to be saved. I thought, okay, now they're going to get. So they raided them. They pulled everything out. Bobbitt got fired. They're investigating. The judge says we win. And you know, the media's like, LabMD wins, LabMD wins. Everyone forgets that the FTC can just overturn them, and the FTC did that. So, and the FTC knows, okay, they hate my guts big time, because why won't anyone read Daugherty, the rule book? You're just supposed to roll over, and everyone can accuse you for the rest of your days and lose your company and shut up. And so they overruled us, and they jumped the shark, and they had to overrule with nothing but lies. I'll skip through that in a minute here. Okay, so now the media's interviewing me, and I am so fired up because that means I am the F out of here. I get to go to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, an Article 3 judge that's not bought and paid for by these SOBs, and even their own judge fried them. So we get to the 11th Circuit. Now by this time it's 2016, and Robeson Gray has taken over the case pro bono. And that's because Robeson Gray, God love them, they were phenomenal. And Robeson Gray is a boutique, highly paid, fantastic cyber law. Well, they're bigger from them, but their cyber department is known for, if you want to roll over to the government, we're your people. Because most of these people, not to mention a few, law firms, I'm not going to mention a ton, but they're all infiltrated with people that used to work at the FTC. And once you have a FTC, badge on, once a Nazi, always a Nazi. So you can't wipe that stuff off when you're in a law firm. So now we won the judge lottery again. If I had 2 more hours, I could talk about the judges we had. They were terrible, but we got this. We got Judge Choflat, 88 years old at the time, not even senior status judge, appointed by Gerald Ford, 88 going on 50, reads everything, doesn't trust his clerks. People that I know that used to clerk for him are just all like, oh my God, you got Judge Choflat. This is so good for you, have no idea. So we get to oral argument, and he starts going after him. And he says, doesn't that underscore the importance or significance of rulemaking? Otherwise, you're regulating data security on a case-by-case basis. And here we go. Now, keep in mind, this is 10 years later, I finally get this sentence from these bastards, which is, we are regulating data security on a case-by-case basis. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court says in Bell Atlantic and Chenery, the agency is entitled to do. Now, that's BS, by the way, but a lawyer will say anything, right? Because that's their job. So, and it doesn't matter whether the subject is any notice at all. So folks, just understand, you're not allowed to know what you have to do to comply with the law in your large, expensive companies. And when you screw up, that guillotine from the board is going to whack your head right off. But that's okay, just take it. So they'll get correct. All right, so notice becomes irrelevant. You can adopt new rules in adjudication. You know what that means? That means I get to say what the rules are after the violation. New rules after the violation. I'm allowed to do that because the Supreme Court made that very clear. What you miss in just the text is, at this point, the judges are chuckling. I appreciate your concessions. Because they're like, no, you can't. More steamrolling. This is about truly persecution through punishment. You think these lawyers cared if they lost? You know, they're making $250 million. They don't care. It's doing their job, punch a clock, you know. So that, and now this is a headline. LabMD decision reigns in the FTC's authority to issue broadly worded and ill-defined orders, which cracks me up because so all the lawyers, especially the academic guys out of Berkeley, you know, and Georgia Tech, you know, they're, oh, the government, and then suddenly, what do you get? You don't get like, oh, we were wrong. You get the silence of the lambs. That's what you get. So, and then nothing goes on. And so I get the Equal Access to Justice Act. So I go through, we win the Court of Appeals. It's all going well. And then, so to speak, you know, I should say going well, but I mean, because I'm sort of a genetic optimist. No matter what, I'm in a good mood. And so that's kind of a lucky break for this. And, but there was no way to really sue them. But one of my lawyers said the Equal Access to Justice Act. So this is only the government would call this the Equal Access to Justice Act. You're allowed, when you are a company with net revenues of less than $7 million, to file for reimbursement for your legal fees if you defeat the government. And they have to pay you back. And the maximum hourly rate adjusted for inflation in 2018 was $192 an hour. And my lawyer's billable rates were between $800 and $1,550 an hour. And so, by this time my case gets so much media, by the way, my lawyers in Boston were all really excited about it because they got a whole media piece ran on this and talked about how expensive they were, Ropes and Gray, which translated how incredibly good they were. And even the reporter goes, these people are so good that this is how much they get. So they were fired up. And it's true. I mean, he's phenomenal. And when you're talking a multi-billion-dollar company, that's who you get. But which is why that's not who they pick on. So for $16 million of invoices submitted, I got $840,000 because it's an Equal Access to Justice Act. And now, yes.
Were you allowed to go over after like loss of income for your business?
No.
Really?
No, because it's the government. So,
what about the patients that you were helping?
No, because there's no patient damage. We protected all of them. And so now just listen, now that's the trial fire, okay? So now we're assuming, and just like me, I assume that was all reality, okay? So subsequent to that, we found things out, and here's a few things. After everything's settled, I'm just gonna go through. We find out in 2014 that Rick Wallace went through 2 attorney law firms because they kept screwing him over, and he finally had to find a lawyer that would believe what was going on. He is a cyber criminal, right? He is got criminal immunity. He has left this organization. He's basically BS'd Congress for several years, and he's got no money. And so the first lawyers just took the money and ran, and just once the bill ran out, they left because we got him money through a nonprofit. And then the second lawyer, they fired them after 3 weeks. So unbeknownst to me, I was talking to Rick a lot, but I was not talking that much at this point. And he hired Mary Beth Buchanan, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. And he did that because she was the one that was working with him back when she was in office and he was doing all this stuff in the mid-2000s. But we didn't know until 2018 when one of my lawyers went to work at the White House. Then he calls me going, she's been committing a felony. I mean, this is her primary case she was working in. So why do you think she's taking this representation? So he filed Freedom of Information Act on all this meeting stuff. And lo and behold, 5 days before he testified in immunity, she's meeting with the FTC. And from a miraculous act of God, or a really good friend of the FTC, I don't know, we got 140 pages in the FOIA in 66 months, which is incredible. It takes like years. The top 10 pages were fully redacted, and the bottom 10 pages were the top 10 pages fully unredacted. So I can't believe that kind of mistake was unintentional. That was Merry Christmas. 5 days before testimony, she's met with me with every big shot. Now, here's the thing to understand. His criminal immunity was only when he was sitting in the stand. And therefore, he had to testify and say everything that happened to be immune from being persecuted for it years before. So, and she put a letter into the court asking her if she could be the one to redirect him so that she could get everything out, which I approved because I still was naive and stupid because I thought, what former U.S. attorney is going to lie to the court? And so she got up there and she didn't pull it all out. And then the fact that whole part of what he did criminally that she didn't bring out on the stand, she used against leverage for him for the next 4 years to threaten him with his immunity if he kept talking to me, because things would creep out. So this is the threat that what she would do, and it was all about the power that the government has to be lawless, and the power they have to not be held accountable. That's what this story really is about. It's complete lack of accountability, and the self-interest to everyone here is that this is who we have trying to run cybersecurity. So it's just the wild, wild west of crazy. And you have a ton of lawyers making a ton of money off of this, and you have an entire privacy industry. I don't mind having another chat one day about what the dirty things I can say about IAPP, enabling these people, because it's money. It's money, 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 money. So IAPP actually had a web conference where they had to pay $149 a member for, to listen to, coincidentally, the lead person prosecuting me, so she could tell you what to do when the FTC sends you a subpoena. But they didn't get a counter thing. So this is how these organizations are in the bag. All right. What I learned over time through finding things out outside the legal process, which is, we run a wild goose chase. The bull is Aaron, a snipe, hunt, a merry chase, a vain attempt, a waste of time, a red herring, lost cause, wasted effort. Because we had other litigation going on, and we had a deposition. And in the deposition it said, Mr. Wallace, are you familiar with the term EP2P? Yes. What did you understand EP2P? It's an enhanced peer-to-peer application. Is it commercially available? No. Where is it? Who developed it, to your knowledge? It was a collaboration of law enforcement. How did you gain access to EP2P if, in your view, it wasn't commercially available? It was given to me. By whom? By the FBI. Who at the FBI? Greg Frankenhouse. Here's the deal. In 2008 or 9, the software that Tyversa used to break into thousands of companies and the 100 the FTC started with was not even taken with their own software. And it took, how many years was that? 11 years to find that out. Because I'm one stubborn SOB. And, which is not really a good thing. And so what happened, and I'm just gonna read this to you, because the whole thing is about cancel culture. Cancel me one way or the other, any way you can, by attacking anyone that could want help. And again, the logs, now I understand why it was so steep. I understand why they're hiding the fact that Mueller's giving an award to a cyber crook. Oh my God. And that it's a protection racket. It's just a protection racket. Okay, so I'm just gonna read the whole, now we're gonna get to what really happened. I'm just gonna read it. The FTC heard of companies allegedly finding proprietary files floating out in cyberspace via P2P networks at a congressional hearing in 2007. The FTC reached out to a company testifying, Tyversa, stating that they would be sending a CID to Tyversa for those allegedly leaked files. Tyversa pushed back, stating they would find the CID because they didn't want to be seen as in bed with the feds. The FTC told Tyversa to create a sham company to funnel the files through, so Tyversa created the Privacy Institute, and the FTC sent the CID there. And a CID is a criminal investigation, a civil investigation. Upon receipt of the files, the FTC noticed, here's criminal act number 1. Upon receipt of the files, the FTC noticed that the files possessed metadata showing that they were taken directly from the owning company computers and were not, as represented in Congress and elsewhere, floating out cyberspace. Now, here's why that is so huge. There was a Ninth Circuit ruling in like 2002. A child pornographer had been busted criminally, and he appealed up the appeals court because he said, the government came into my computer and took these files. That's illegal search and seizure of the Fourth Amendment. And the appeals court said, when you put file sharing software on your computer as the owner of the computer, then you've given up your right to privacy. If that folder is open to the world, that folder is open to the world. If you open it up in the world, you open it up to us too. Now that means the FBI and the Justice Department for the last 19 years has been having Merry Christmas over everybody's files all over the country, or the world, okay? And so they, hold on, something just happened here. All right, so this representation meant that if they knew that my file came from my computer instead of folding on Science, then my Fourth Amendment right would protect me from their investigation. So what they do? They killed it. They wiped the metadata from all those companies and then put that press release out. Remember that? And that was so they could start the investigations of everyone. Now, I would be shocked, except now I'm jaded, but you know. So that's the first thing they did, so they can start the investigation. A harmless little thing for justice, because all they wanted was a consent decree. So this isn't going to do anything to anyone, really. We just have consent decrees, and then we say what people are supposed to do, and I'm sorry, but no one remembers who you are anyway. Target survived. TJ Maxx survived. Just go along. So that's pretty much what's in their head. At this point, the FTC should have investigated Tyversa, but instead they told Tyversa to strip the metadata off the files and resubmit them, effectively removing the file's owner's Fourth Amendment rights, falsifying evidence, and suborning perjury. Tyversa complied, and the FTC put out a press release announcing they're starting investigations. Widespread data breaches uncovered FTC probe. Now, we learned this because when Mary Beth Buchanan left Brian Cave, I told Rick to get his entire legal file sent to him. And a couple years later, he wanted information from me. We signed an agreement, and he sent that entire Brian Cave file to me. Now, you are the owner, correct, Richard Marshall, of your files in your law firm, not them. So don't think, Mary Beth Buchanan, who never calls and doesn't send Christmas cards, suddenly called up Rick and said, why are you getting the files sent to your house? And they were kind of onto her, so they, whatever. And then we got it. He gave up privilege. His right to do so. Lawyers could never do this. This would be unethical for lawyers. But he and I want to help each other in our cases because he was suing Tyversa in Butler County. So we get this, and of course, I don't have time to read this. We don't find this stuff in here for months. But anyway, so now so that's the setup as to the first strike of corruption, okay? And that's when and it wasn't personal against me, all right? And the reason I was on that list, as was testified in the court hearing, was everyone that was on that list turned over to the FTC was basically enemies of the CEO. People that wouldn't hire him or fired him. I'm going to finish and then I'll take questions. Okay, because I bet you the answer's in here, the most. Okay. The FTC notified LabMD, and LabMD spent years under draining and ruinous investigation. In 2011, the FTC asked for a consent decree, and LabMD refused. The CEO of LabMD began writing a book about the unaccountable behavior, the double sided beltway. In 2012, the FTC filed more CIDs versus LabMD, and LabMD objected. When in court, the FTC lied at the Northern District of Georgia via DOJ lawyers, covering up the initial foundation to investigate what's fraudulently created. So, to investigate, you must have plausibility. If you have to manipulate data and lie, there's no plausible reason to investigate. And so you can't just come in. The government has so much power, they couldn't even get that far off the ground. And so the 2013 book trailer came out for Daugherty's upcoming book. The FTC went to the website 75 times in 2 days, immediately notified Daugherty they were proceeding with enforcement action. Daugherty's book, released in 2013, was successful. The FTC told LabMD's Daugherty they were upset, blah, blah, okay. The FTC had never adjudicated regarding data security violations before and did not have the evidence to win a prosecution, but they were furious with Daugherty and LabMD's sole owner. The FTC via Alan Shear contacted Tyversa again and told Robert Bobick they needed spread. So here's the second boom. Now it's personal. Now it's LabMD versus FTC. And I'm the only one they're suing. They don't have victims. They don't have evidence. You want to know why? Nothing happened. It's all a lie. And they know it. So now, and I'm going to show you the evidence in a second. So they told them, well, create spread. Make up IP addresses. So I'm sitting there in the deposition and having this SOB Bobick, this sociopathic lying piece of crap, say to me, and I'm there going, yeah, we found it in California and Panama, and I look at my lawyer going, they're making this up, they're on this together. And this is our first deposition ever, and of course, my lawyer, thinks I'm the crazy person. I'm the nutbag, I'm the control freak, I'm the emotional one. I mean, shut up! Everyone's like, shut up. 700,000 cancer patients, shut up. We all have work to do, shut up. So, So the FTC, let's see, okay. With falsified evidence used to start investigations and then more created to specifically after LabMD, the FTC sued LabMD on August 28th. First and Fourth Amendment rights were stripped as well as any rights to due process. 1 week later, Tyversa sued LabMD for defamation. The first deposition in the FTC matter, October 13th, was with Bobbitt and was run by Alan Scheer, the lead attorney. Bobbitt perjured himself numerous times. Scheer suborned perjury numerous times. At the time, LabMD had no idea. The entire racket was to punish LabMD and destroy it for threatening to expose the FTC and Tyversa's appalling and corrupt practices. We didn't even know what they did. I just knew they were terrified of me. It took this long to figure this out. In January 14, the cancer detection closed its doors. In April 14, Richard Wallace contacted Daugherty. In May 14, the FTC hearing started in front of the ALJ, which after the FTC arrested, again, suborning perjury from the expert witness who told them to automatically assume. The FTC told their 3 expert witnesses from high-powered academia all over the United States to assume that LabMD had bad data security practices and the files were on cyberspace, so they didn't have to look. And they got paid like $500,000 for that. And so the whole thing's a setup. You get the. So only in 2018 did LabMD learn about the altered evidence, because that's when we got the Brian Cave file. And then in 19 we got the testimony I just read you. So that's how we learned about it. So here we are today. So in these notes from here, there's this 5 pages of notes that I'm just showing. We have the written evidence from this case, and that's from Wallace's attorneys and Wallace's interview, and that is absolutely to be relied upon in court. Now we just sued, and I'm almost done. We just sued the FTC under the Federal Torts Claims Act, which is this. I mean, they've got so much race to screw over, you have no idea, and they're so hard to get them, but we still have them. And so we've sued in Northern District of Georgia. It's really hard to find a lawyer that wants to take on these guys. Really hard. Big Law is not interested. Because it's all interwoven. You know, they leave the agency, they go work for the big law firm. The big law firm has access to clients in the agency. And if y'all just go along, get along, everything will be fine. What's your question?
What was the discovery of the FBI raid of Tyversa?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up. Sorry. I can't fit everything into an hour. I was in London at Cynet, and I was in and I was at the Virgin Atlantic Lounge at Heathrow, yelling at the FBI investigator when he informed me that they closed the investigation. They couldn't prove that Bobbitt knew, and I mean, it was just I was like. His name's John too. I was like, John, quit bullshitting me. There's no way in hell. But I said, I understand you can't tell me the truth. I understand you can't say this. I really was off the chain. I was yelling. But bottom line is, I started getting anonymous emails from Proton Mail telling me that all this was going down. And we are still trying to get into discovery to figure out who sent that stuff. We've hired international law firms in Switzerland to try to get this out of Proton Mail, because this whole thing it's unbelievable. And it turned out that the bottom line is the FBI works, each city's like a different vertical, and DC initially went tearing in there, and they opened the casket and they went, oh my God, gunk. Because what they discovered is what I discovered later, which is the GJ and the FBI was the co-conspirator to steal these files from thousands of corporations, because they're the ones that gave them the weapon. It's the fast and furious of cybersecurity. So therefore, they can't prosecute them because they're the co-conspirator. So any defense lawyer is going to say, excuse me, we have a problem here with who's bringing the charges. Yes?
Can you prove that with a FOIA?
I've got it proven already here. I mean, all these articles, all these notes, all these witnesses, and some FOIA stuff. I've got testimony. I've got the name. We know. So I mean, what happens is you have. I mean, we don't have hearsay. We have written documents from lawyers who used to be a former U.S. attorney and her associate stating what went on in their interview with Richard Wallace. So now we have to get to an Article 3 court to open up more discovery. And I will tell you, it will take a long time because the government doesn't like having its dirty laundry exposed. But yeah, we can prove it right there.
So are you done? Are you good?
No, now we're just starting.
So how much longer do you think this is going to take?
10 more years. It's not the point. The story's the point. I mean, the point about this is, this is how they roll. And so it's the bigger picture. But I mean, it depends on what judge you get. You know, I mean, look, if you read the ruling from the 11th Circuit on awarding me $800,000, you know, usually lawyers are like objective corpses. Nothing gets them excited. Nothing. Because emotion, no emotion. And, you know, and they know that this really is about justice, but they're not going to tell you that because why would you be there? And so it was fascinating to me because when Judge Choflat did that oral argument and when they came out with that ruling, they were so animated with things like, you never see this. This never happens. This is unbelievable. These are these coy Supreme Court guys. I mean, Ropes and Gray did such a phenomenal job. I mean, they brought in tons of people. They were incredible. For working pro bono, they were unbelievable. And it was like I was paying them all tons of money. They were so on it. And they were, it was a great observation to watch. I'm usually the one they're concerned about being emotional, but when I'm on. I would not be a successful, you know, entrepreneur with surgeons dealing with cancer if I was, you know, had a reputation of always flipping out. My reputation is I have no bullshit, and so when you're in trouble, guess who you call? But and that rubs some people the wrong way. But as far as that was, I was in the courtroom just like an Iceman, and Mr. Iceman's like elbowing me, going this. So the point is, you know, again, I wrote this because the story has to be told of this is how they roll, regardless of whether we win or not. Okay, now go ahead. Yeah.
What's the name of it again?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. It's called The Devil Inside the Beltway. It's available on Amazon, an ebook, audiobook, hardcover, and softcover. Most of my friends over here are so damn sick of hearing about it.
They're all gonna think I'm a plant.
No, it's all right. Anyway, does anyone else have any questions? Yes.
So on your diagram, your hand diagram of the branches of the government,
Yeah.
you selected the middle finger for the judicial branch. Was that intentional or subliminal?
It was a test, and I owe you a cocktail. Let me see, did I do that? Hold on. Let me tell you something. I have very mixed emotions about the judicial branch because there's nothing better and nothing saves you more than if you get a great judge. I mean, Judge Choflat was just, the second they announced my panel, by this time I was so deep in law and technology. I have a lot of friends at the top that, it used to be all my friends were surgeons. Remember The Godfather when Diane goes, he hangs around with your thugs. And I was like, that's my life now. All I do is hang around with lawyers and tech people. But that paid off because when I got that judge, my phone went bing, bing, bing. I was like, because I get people. I used to clerk with him because, he was 88. He's now 92. He's still incredible. He took senior status. But they're like, he reads everything. He doesn't trust anybody. He reads the whole thing. And when we walked out of oral argument, Ropes and Gray, and this is true, they said, holy cow, he's read more than we briefed. He got into all the corruption. They would brief the corruption. Because I didn't have, this is 2016, I didn't have what I got in 18 and 19. And these people are just like white gloves. I'm sorry. You're the plaintiff or the defendant. Please, just sit there and shut up. So it's a double-edged sword because I've got all sorts of terrible things to say about the Western District of Pennsylvania. And I have all sorts of lawyers that have told me what a swamp that district is, and especially at the state level. And you get in and you see it. That's a whole nother thing I want to do after. I've got like 4 more books in me because I don't want to rail against it. You just have to understand it in case the tree falls down on you and you get stuck in it. And most people get stuck in it in family law, most citizens. But it's basically I say that judges are allowed to be as good as their mother raised them because there's really no accountability. And I've talked to a lot of people that are, I mean, brilliant attorneys, you know, and judges. This guy in the Sixth Circuit, I forget his name right now, but he like has the entire founding fathers in his memory, and he's like, the founding fathers knew they gave so much centralized power to the judiciary, but they planned on that because they said judges were going to hold each other accountable. Oh, sorry. So, because you know, they're not holding each other accountable. They're whistling past the damn graveyard, you know? And so they all know, just like with surgeons, they all know who's hacking people up in town. They're fixing all their mistakes. So that's why it's like, my expectations are not, I'm gonna sue. I wanna get to discovery. I wanna show how much they fight back. I wanna show this is year 10. You know, I wanna show it. I mean, this is, they can't really come at me because, I mean, they can, but they wouldn't by now. I mean, we diagnose cancer and we have, you know, I mean, 4 weeks before we closed, we had our last inspection and it was a perfect score. What are they gonna do? They usually go looking for, you know, but we're such terrible people diagnosing cancer. Go get them. So, you know, and so it's, the rearview mirror is very satisfying now, but it's ironic that people, like, I mean, good friends of mine over here that we talk and they say, this morning, Renee, are you done? And I'm like, we're just starting. The plaintiff work is just starting. Because I just learned what happened recently, yes.
So, my question is, what is the end game for you on this? What is it that you are expecting to see out of it?
I don't know what that, oh, wait a second. I thought you were going to
I
school.
mean, is it legislative? Is it?
I don't know. So when I was a boss with the staff and I trained salespeople, I used to tell them, you never know what's going to happen, but nothing will happen if you don't get out there and make something happen. Okay, so that's true about this. I mean, do you think in 2014, if I would have said, a whistleblower is going to come out because my book got released, Daryl Ice is going to read it and have this big old visceral reaction. We're going to start a congressional investigation. I'm going to be testifying in front of the entire House Oversight panel, which the media is going to completely ignore because they're so in the bag with the left. And I mean, but in the rearview mirror, it's crazy. So I don't know what's coming, you know. And but that's what makes it, you know. I mean, it's, you know, I have money, I have freedom, but I'm not about that as success. I find it important to have an interesting life is really a successful life. So this has been terrible, but it's also been fascinating. You know, I just can't, you know, so what I have done for myself now is I've opened, I really learned I hated being just in tech or law because I'm not a tech person, I'm not a law person, so no one around here really would treat me like I had any knowledge whatsoever because I just dropped out of nowhere. That got really annoying. You know, it's like suddenly you go from being a respected business person that diagnoses cancer people and helps them in their medical practice to who the hell are you stupid idiot with a big mouth. That was the worst part. So I went back and opened my own lab again and I moved to Virginia and that's like that. But I've also opened the Justice Society, which is now my passion, which is, you know, it's just starts at thejusticesociety.com and it's we train Davids to defeat Goliaths. And we are half litigation and half education. Because the big thing is, I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty well-educated guy with a very kind of unusual upbringing, and I didn't know. And people need to understand this and understand this is how this government rolls. It's pretty late, you know, and there's a lot more to say, but it's 3:04, so that's it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Show today.